Hello, everybody out there. This is Kirsten from Tarot Verband, the German Tarot Association, and I'm very, very pleased to have Robert Place with me here today. Hello, Robert. Robert?
Hello.
Hello. We're
Yeah.
having a bit
Uh,
of a
can I take my
delay.
glasses off?
Are you okay, Robert?
Yeah,
Okay. We're
I'm
having
fine.
Okay, no, it's just about, I was just going to tell people that we are having here a bit of a technical delay between Germany and the States, so please bear with us. It's Friday evening here. Perhaps the lines are
Quite,
not so good because
quite
of
fast
this.
considering
I'm sorry?
it's quite fast considering how far away we are.
You're
You know,
right.
the delay.
You're quite right. And anybody who doesn't know Robert, he has been an institution in tarot, I would say, for many years. German tarot readers know him probably best for his work he did together with Rachel Pollack. Robert has been writing loads of books on tarot. I have one here with me, uh, which I bought about 15 years ago, and which is excellent. You really have to get it yourself. And of course, much more important is that you have done so much work, art, tarot art, especially on tarot and alchemy. And this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Um,
Uh, yeah, well, that makes sense. So, what do you want
so you, as far as I know, you did your first tarot deck in the 90s. Is this right?
Yeah. The thing was, I was involved with the tarot after I had a dream back in 1982. Um, I had a dream where I was I was uh, I was basically I was walking through a room in the dream, and there was a telephone on a telephone table, and it rang. And when it rang, it woke me into this type of lucidity because I was realizing that some of my dream, like the phone was a symbol of a message coming from outside normal consciousness. Yeah, cool. I mean, this is back in the 1980s when people actually had telephones that they would pick up.
I know.
Didn't have any. So I picked up the phone, and a dream operator got on and said she had a person-to-person call for Robert Place from England, and would I accept it? So I said yes, and then she put on a woman who was like worked for a dream law firm, and the woman from the law firm told me that I had a inheritance coming from an ancestor, and would I accept it? And she said it's very powerful, but the ancestor incurred some karmic debt by misusing it, and you're going to have to take on the debt also and pay it off. And I didn't even think about that. I just said, "Oh, sure, okay," and it was so vivid. I mean, like I asked her, "So what is it?" And she said, "Well, it'll come in a box from England. It's called the key." And it was so vivid. When I woke up in the morning, I just sat up in bed, and I was like looking at the foot of the bed, expecting the box to be there. And my wife was saying, "What are you doing?" So I told her about the dream. Things started happening. Like within a day or so, a friend of mine, my friend Scott, came over, and he had the Wade Smith cards with him. And when he walked through, I was sitting at the kitchen table, and the door was to my left. And he walked in the door because he's a good friend. He just walked right in. And he's holding the box, and my head turned and my eyes focused on the box with just totally involuntarily. It was like, why is my head doing this? So then I saw the box, and of course I recognized the tarot deck, and I said, oh yeah, the tarot, it was originally made in England by Pamela Smith, and the trumps are called keys. That's why it's called keys, the key. And of course, even the book was the key to the tarot. So I said, oh, that must be the inheritance. I mean, just don't, like, duh. I mean, I had known about the tarot since I was in college. I wasn't that involved in it. And back in college, I actually started reading about the tarot. My girlfriend used to do the cards, and I started going to the library and looking up antique cards. And then I found out about the tarot of Marseille. and the older deck. And actually, I decided I was going to create my own tarot deck when I was in college, and I cut out little cardboard cards, and I hand painted copies of the Tarot of Marseille cards. And I got about 4 cards done, and I said, "This is too much work," and I gave up, because it's 78 cards.
Okay.
And so I sort of forgot about the tarot, and I was in college in the 1960s, so it was like, this is like 20 years later. This dream came to me, and I started getting involved in tarot. So I immediately said, "Well, gee, I have to get one of these decks for myself." That's what I told Scott. But then the next day, my friend, another friend of mine, who was an astrologer, he gave me Tarot of Marseille, and he said he's very intuitive, and so his name was Ed, and he said, like, I think you should have, something tells me I'm not using this deck, but you're supposed to have it. So he gave me the Tarot of Marseille. And then I started playing around with the Tarot of Marseille from things I remember. And I said, well, I should get the Wade Smith deck also. So, of course, there weren't, back then, that you can just go to the bookstore and get one. And I lived in New Jersey, which is pretty far. It was at least an hour and a half drive to New York City. But I drove into New York City to get a deck. And I went into this bookstore, and I bought the Wade Smith Tarot, and I brought it home. And then I started playing with it. And then I said, well, maybe I should read some books on this. And I started reading more books about it. And of course, I was always an artist and an art historian. And I knew that the books didn't make any sense, because they were saying things like the cards originally came from Egypt, or they were developed in Fez, Morocco, and they encapsulated the Kabbalah. And I mean, just things that were nonsense, because they didn't have cards in ancient Egypt, and they certainly it didn't make any sense historically. So I started trying to look for better books on history, but then I started noticing all these references in the Wade Smith deck to alchemy and Gnosticism and things that I had researched. And so I started researching this more and more. So jumping ahead, a few years later, I was getting obsessive. This information kept coming to me, and I was working. I used to make handmade jewelry, silver jewelry and gold jewelry, and my business started really hurting. And I was spending more and more time doing this, and when I should have been working on my business. And then I was getting stacks of, like my work table had stacks of books going up to the ceiling. I mean, because of all the stuff I was reading. So I started taking notes. And the thing was, I was never a writer at that time. Before that, I wasn't a writer. I was always an artist. So I started taking notes, and I had this revelation one day. I was looking through one of my books on magic and alchemy, and I saw this picture. And that gave me this revelation about the connection between alchemy and tarot. So I'm gonna share the screen now, because I want to show you that picture. Okay.
Yeah,
so
please.
Let's see. First,
so did I understand right that before you had this dream, you never really bothered about tarot, just because you had your girlfriend?
Yeah, my girlfriend did it, and I remember I started trying to make a tarot deck back then, but I sort of gave up on it. And it came to me in dream, and the dream told me it was my inheritance. So then I got really involved, because I got excited. Let's see. Intro to. Okay, we're gonna go to this.
Yes, please. But
let me share screen.
Did you know about alchemy before? Did you look
I had been studying magic and alchemy since I was in college, right?
Okay. Interesting.
Now, I don't see this. Let's see, share. I don't see the thing.
So working with, you said you did gold art. So this is already something to do with.
I worked with metal, which of course
is alchemy.
See, the thing is about alchemy. Yeah, it's originally it had to do with metallurgy.
Interesting. So you are an alchemist yourself.
Well, yeah. In fact, I'm going to explain that to you a little bit, because
I shut up now. You said I should ask questions.
Yeah, you are. That's good. Okay, application. Here we go.
Okay.
Alchemy.
I close the frame, and then you should be. You should go and open the Yeah, okay, wait. Like this.
Can you see it?
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, so here I was. It was the summer of '87, and I was looking at this illustration from Harmony Mystique. It was originally drawn in 1636, and it depicts the Philosopher's Stone. Now, the Philosopher's Stone work of alchemy, the Magnum Opus. And so no matter what, alchemists did all kinds of things. They worked with metal, they made medicines, they made perfumes, all different things. But alchemists also knew about the great work to make the ultimate medicine, the ultimate catalyst. And this is called the Philosopher's Stone. The Philosopher's Stone was this magical substance that it was a universal catalyst that would turn anything into its highest form. Now, alchemists believed that lead was a very low form of metal, and that gold was the purest form of metal. So that if you used the Philosopher's Stone with lead and combined them, it would turn the lead into gold. So that's where the whole idea of turning lead into gold comes from. But it also improved anything. So it supposedly could heal any illness. It was a panacea. It could prolong life indefinitely. It would turn an ordinary person into a more enlightened sage. So this was the goal of alchemy. This to make this mystical substance. Now the thing is, although it's called a stone, it's not really a stone. In fact, alchemists would say it's the stone that's not a stone, because it's not made of material. It's made of the spiritual substance that's in all matter. Now, alchemists believe that everything in the world is alive. Rocks are alive, not just trees and animals, and plants and people. That the earth itself, minerals, the water, the planets, everything is alive. And so to be alive is to have soul. And of course, the word soul in Latin is anima. So the world itself has a soul, and that's called the anima mundi, the soul of the world. Now, the Philosopher's Stone is made of that pure essence, the anima mundi, the soul of the world. And so to draw a picture of the Philosopher's Stone, you can't actually see it. So they would make symbolic images, these mandalas, to symbolize the Philosopher's Stone, because that was the only way to explain it. So you see, in this picture, can you see my cursor moving?
No, but I can show
Okay, well,
whatever you want me to. No, I think
okay,
people can't see my cursor either. I don't know how
no,
to.
I can't. Okay, well, I'll just describe it. Okay, so in this picture, you see, it's two images of the same thing, really done by at different times. And see, there's like a shield or an oval. Like the first one's a shield, the second one's an oval, and there's a heart in the center, and the heart represents the anima mundi, the soul of the world. And then you see it's being equated, like the soul of the world is being equated to Christ in these images, because of course it was created by a Christian alchemist. Yeah. So the heart is in the center of a cross, but notice the cross is dividing the background into the four elements. Not, it's not a typical Christian icon, because you actually have the four elements in the corners. You see how, like, there's in the lower, if we look at the one on the left, you'll see there's earth as these wavy lines, and then there's a fire, which it looks like flames on to the right. And then if we go above it, above the fire, that's supposed to be water, like rain coming down from the sky. And then the other one with the stars on the left, it represents air, or the heavens. So those are the four elements. And then you see to have the crown of thorns around it, right? Yeah. Okay, now notice that there's 5 drops of blood, which of course is the 5 wounds of Christ. But also, so number 5 is a mystical number, because this essence, the anima mundi in this mandala, is called the Quincunx, which means the essential fifth. Because we all know that the alchemists believed that there were 4 elements, so I just went over. There's earth, fire, water, and air. But the thing is, there's this 5th element. Maybe you remember that movie, The Fifth Element?
I remember very well. It's one of my favorite films.
Yeah. Okay. So the 5th element, she's the anima mundi. See, that's why it was a woman.
Yeah.
Because anima is a feminine noun. So the anima mundi is usually portrayed as a woman, but in this case, it's portrayed as a heart. And it's
Yeah.
the 5 drops of blood, which would be a Christian symbol, now become, they're saying out of the 4 comes this 1, the 5th, which you see is below it there. And then a rose, which represents perfection, is growing out of the heart. Okay, now and see the one on the right, the same thing. See, there's a rosebud coming out of the heart. I mean, it's just a repositioning of the same symbolic elements. You see how the earth, you see it actually wheat coming out, and the fire, like it's all tied together somehow. Okay, now I was looking at this image, and I was thinking about how the woman on the world card in the Tarot of Marseille, it's a dancing female figure, and I was thinking, and I just started thinking about how in Egyptian hieroglyphs, one of the images of the soul is a dancing female figure, just like that. And I said, well, yeah, of course, so the woman represents the soul, and of course, the Anima Mundi is usually portrayed as a woman anyway. So that woman on the world card probably is the Anima Mundi, or the soul, and then she's in the center of this cross, where because in the four corners, there's the 4 symbols of the 4 evangelists, which are the Christian symbols, you know, like the 4 evangelist symbols, you know, that's the lion, the bull, the eagle, and the man, are the symbols of the writers, you know, the authors of the 4 gospels. So in the Christian Christ and Majesty icon, we'll see, like, Christ would be in the center, and those 4 creatures would be around in the corners, representing that his message is going to the 4 corners of the earth. And see, and so it's a similar kind of mandala. This type of mandala is called a quincunx, where the essential element, the most important elements in the center, and then the 4 corners represent the 4 directions, the 4 seasons, the 4 elements, all the aspects of the material world. And even in Christian iconography, those 4 evangelist symbols were related to the 4 elements. So, and I said, well, so I was thinking about that, and I said, well, if the woman represents the soul, and then the evangelists are the 4 elements, aren't these symbols interchangeable?
Mm-hmm.
And when I said that, it was like it opened up a portal in my mind, and it was like, oh, then the whole if that's the final trump, you know, if there's 21 trumps, there's a fool, and then there's 21 trumps, and the final trump is the world card, which is now represents the Philosopher's Stone, which is not just the world, but the soul of the world, of course.
Yeah.
And then, so then wouldn't all the other cards be leading up to the same thing, just like in the Magnum Opus, all the processes lead up to the Philosopher's Stone? So wouldn't alchemy and the tarot be interchangeable? And when I said that, it was like this flood of images came out of my mind, like where I saw alchemical images of tarot cards coming together. And I had this book on alchemy by Jung, you know, Psychology and Alchemy. So I picked it up, and I started looking at all the alchemical images and writing notes next to them in the margins about which cards they related to. And this happened in minutes. It was like an epiphany. So you see, let's go to the next. Okay, can you see this now?
Not yet.
Okay, well, it's because we're on a delay, right? Tell me when you can see it.
It should be there by now. No. Perhaps you need to click on something else.
Huh? How come
yes, when we practiced, everything was fine with this. I can't.
Yeah, I know.
Can I do that something? No, I can't click here. Don't know. Did you just change the page?
I'm gonna yeah, let me change again and go back. You know what? I'm gonna stop sharing a second.
Okay.
And we're gonna go to share screen, and then we're gonna go to applications, and then we'll click on this one, go share.
So this image you were showing, yeah, now I can see something else. Wait, hold on. This image you were showing, you said it was a kind of epiphany, but
yeah.
Now we can see the world cards. Okay, continue. I will ask my question later.
Okay, so like now this is the oldest Tarot of Marseille deck, the Jean Noblet from 1650. It's the oldest one we have. Obviously, there could have been others, but you see how the female figure, she's obviously a female. She has you know, woman's breasts, but see how she's has a cape, and she's holding a scepter, sort of like a Christ image in the Christ and Majesty icon, and you have the 4 evangelists in the corner, like there's the bull and the lion on the bottom, and then the human angel and the eagle on the top. So those represent the four evangelists, right? So this would be Luke and Mark and Matthew and John. So now, but the tricky thing is, so why is a female figure replacing Christ? You see, that's the thing that's twerks the imagination. Now, as you see, as we go through time, like, see, this is, I collect antique cars. Like, this is an antique one I have from Milan from the 1800s. And you see how it's the same imagery. Like, see, they refined the woman. So, like, the artist obviously can draw better. So, like, you can see clearly that there's a woman there holding like a shawl of some kind. Mm-hmm. And then we see the animals in the corners. And then now we come to the Wade Smith deck, and you see how Pale McClellan Smith is just totally basing her image on these past images. So she has two scepters, which of course we see in some Tarot of Marseille decks. They have two scepters, and she has the same shawl wrapped around her, like this Italian one. And now here's the first tarot deck I designed was called the Alchemical Tarot. This was designed in 1995, the original, but I've done 5 different versions of it, and this is the latest version from 2020. So you can see how the woman in the center is now in the heart with the rose coming out, sort of like the vision. The wreath representing the wreath of time, I made the Ouroboros, you see, and then she's against the cross, and in the corners instead of the evangelist, I'm showing the equivalent elemental symbols that the evangelists are related to.
It's lovely.
Like and see the way they would relate them is the 4 evangelist symbols were equated to the fixed signs of the zodiac, representing the 4 seasons, and then each one of those had a different elemental association. So the bull of Luke would be related to earth, where the lion of Mark is related to fire. You see, or like the eagle, it was considered an alternative to Scorpio, which was a water symbol, and then this would be Aquarius in the air.
And then
so that's how I got into it. You see.
And then you have the caduceus and a rose.
Yeah, the thing is, also now she has the winged sandals, the Telerii. So it's because the thing is that the woman in alchemy, the anima mundi, is also Hermes or Mercury, and Mercury is considered hermaphroditic in alchemy. So this becomes the inner soul, the female aspect of Mercury.
Okay. And from this card, Epiphany, you were saying, and then
so Epiphany. So then I started doing all this research and like making notes and trying to explain how alchemy and the tarot came together. And then finally, a friend of mine said, "Well, aren't you going to design a deck? You are an artist." And so then I started making the cards, and then there was a magazine back then called Gnosis, and they asked me to put a 1-page article in about the deck I was working on. And then Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who was another New Age author, got in touch with me because she saw the article, and she asked me to contribute to her book on the tarot. And then later, she asked me to do some ghostwriting for her and things, and then she offered to team up with me to get my Alchemical Tarot published, because she said she had contacts in England with HarperCollins in England, which was Thorson's. Mm-hmm. So I got a phone call from England, almost like my original dream. I'm sitting there, and the editor-in-chief from Thorson's calls me up and said they wanted to do the tarot deck, and she's really excited about it. And so that's how it was. I did it for them originally, and that came out in 1995. And immediately it started to take off and became world famous.
It's really amazing.
So what do you want to know about it? You want to know more about alchemy? Or
what I would like to know is how, perhaps also for people who don't know so much about alchemy, how the alchemical process is. You explained what they intended, the alchemists, but how can we understand this process?
Okay. Well, of course, the deck explains that, but I want to just jump ahead a little bit here. Let's see what we can do.
Because Yeah,
Okay.
that's what you said, Sophia. The soul is also mercurial, but actually we start with kind of a mercurial figure in the beginning, right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna jump ahead to my actual deck. Okay. Now,
Okay.
can you see this? Can you see this picture,
I
or do I
can
have to go
see
through the whole?
alchemy and the tarot. I can now see the Fool.
Okay. Okay. Working. It's working. Wow. Okay. You're right. As we go along, it gets sort of
We're
used to it
getting better and better, Robert.
and better. Yes. Okay. Okay. So you see now, if we look at the first picture here, this is from the Dodal Tarot of Marseille from 1701, and we see the Fool is really like he's what we call a jongleur, a traveling performer. And the dog is not really his friend. See, his dog's ripping his pants and biting his rear end. So the reason the dog's biting him is because people used to have dogs as watchdogs, and the jongleur was a type of traveling performer that went from town to town. So why the dog is attacking him is part of the joke of the image, because it's showing that he's an outsider. He's somebody that comes in from the outside and is just traveling in to the story. And that's why the dog attacks him, because he's a stranger. Now, when we go to the Waite Smith card, you see also now the dog looks, Pamela interpret the dog as the Fool's friend, but he's still like in a sort of dangerous position. He's on a cliff, like looking up and not looking ahead, where there's a precipice in front of him. So there's this sort of like, and he's similarly gaily attired. So there is a connection back to. It's not exactly the same imagery that we had in the Marseille deck, but there's a connection. You see, there's a transformation going on.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at this and I say, okay, between these two decks, remember these are the two decks I started with, right? Okay, so like, how did this relate to alchemy? And I said, well, in alchemy, the alchemist himself is considered like a fool in the beginning because he's ignorant of the process and he has to learn. So now here's this image on the right from Mikkel Spacker's Kabbalah 1616. See, because by 1616, Kabbalah, alchemy, magic were all combined. People thought they were all the same thing. So here's a book on alchemy called Kabbalah, and this is from Germany, which you'll be glad to know. And
I'm very glad.
So bringing the imagery back to Germany. Okay, and Mikkel Speck is full. Now you notice, like, see, he's the alchemist that's going to take this journey and find the Philosopher's Stone. But you see, he's blindfolded, right? Now the reason he's blindfolded. Now in Renaissance art, everything means something. Everything's a symbol. It's not like, it's not just I want to make beautiful pictures. Like how like when I studied art back in the 1960s and I was in college, there was abstract expressionism was the thing, and it was all about like, we don't want that literary quality to art. But see, like, as if that's dumb. You're supposed to just work on the formal elements, the composition, the beauty of the forms and colors and how they compose. And well, in the Renaissance, they worked on all that stuff, but they also worked on the literary message, and they would have thought that abstract expression was just garbage. I mean, they would have thought it was really stupid. So, because art was supposed to say something, it was supposed to have a message. And so everything in a painting or in an image like this, especially, that's how alchemy picked up on all this symbolism, because everything's a symbol. So a blindfold in the Renaissance was considered not a good thing. It means you're ignorant. It means when like how we have what you see in the Tarot, when you see Justice, she's not blindfolded, right? But like, if I look on a courthouse in the United States and they show a statue of Justice, she has a blindfold to show that she's impartial. But they wouldn't do that in the Renaissance when the cards were made, because it would have been, she was stupid.
I never thought of this. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so see, the symbolism changed as our ideas about it changed. Also, like, how originally in the Tarot you'll see Cupid is blindfolded, but then later in the French decks he starts losing his blindfold because people start looking at him in a more positive light. And the reason he's blindfolded in the first place is because they thought he was sort of evil. Like, Cupid was considered sort of demonic, the way he just like shot his arrows indiscriminately and made people fall in love with the wrong people.
Yeah.
So they, husbands should cheat on their wives and stuff like that. So, but then later they started looking at him in a more favorable way, and that's how we come, like Valentine cards today, like have, these cute little cupids with no blindfolds, right? So
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so he's blindfolded because it represents ignorance, and he's following this rabbit. The rabbit's like a spirit guide, and he's going to take him into this mountain. See, I've sort of put my card over where the hole is in the mountain. That takes him into the darkness of the first stage of alchemy, because alchemy has these color stages you go through. So the first stage is called the negretto, which means the blackening. So on my card, you see, I just sort of put it together. I showed the same. I mean, it's basically Mikkel Spacker's Fool, but I put some feathers in his cap, like the earliest Fool cards from the hand-painted tarot decks made for the made in Milan, the Visconti Sforza deck. You see, the Fool has feathers in his hat, which is a symbol of foolishness. But see, I made them in the alchemical colors. Red and white are opposites in alchemy. Red is masculine, and white is feminine. So that even though it's like represents foolishness here, he already has that harmony between the two. And he's being guided by a star that above him, like so, and he has the spirit guide, the rabbit, right?
And he has this red feather again.
Yeah, the red feather and the white feather. Yeah.
Okay. I can't see the white feather, but now I see it. Yeah. Okay. I
You see the white feather?
Okay. And the rabbit that's like Alice in Wonderland. I never thought.
Exactly. Yeah, and just think about it. This is 1616, and this the rabbit's leading the alchemist down a rabbit hole to a venture, right?
Yeah, interesting.
Well, before Alice in Wonderland was. Okay, now I'm gonna go. Let's see. Now, can you see this page?
Yes. Now everything works fine.
Working. Okay, so here's my my original Alchemical Tarot. Although this is the 5th edition. Now, my newest deck, I went back to the Marseille deck, and I said, well, I've so reinterpreted the images in my Alchemical Tarot. I want to go back to the Marseille deck and make it closer to the Marseille deck and show how it's still alchemical. Now, the thing is, the Marseille deck is not supposed to be an alchemical text. Basically, what I found is that the Tarot is based on Hermetic philosophy. And of course, alchemy is also based on Hermetic philosophy. So that's why they coincide, because they're both based on Hermetic philosophy. So in this deck, besides see how this is a symbol of the Opus, that circle with the triangle and the square. I put it, see how it's on both cards,
yeah,
right?
I can see it on the top, yeah.
Okay, there's also a quote on the left. You see on the Alchemical Tarot of Marseille, which is from the Hermetic. The Hermetica is this group of texts that were written in ancient Egypt in not like in the time when it was part of the Roman Empire, not like ancient Egypt before the Romans. But this is there were lots of mystics there that wrote these philosophical texts, and they wrote books on alchemy and astrology, and they would sign the work Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes thrice great, instead of their own names, because they felt this wisdom came from Hermes. And in the Hermetica, which are the philosophical texts, Hermes is presented as a man who lived centuries before, who was a normal man, but through his wisdom and learning, he became like a god. And of course, this was written by people who weren't monotheists, so there were lots of gods. Like Hercules was, the heroes in ancient Greece became gods. Like Hercules, because of his exploits, even though he was a man, he became a god. So we might say, in modern terminology, we might say he became enlightened. And so the Hermetica is considered this textbook on enlightenment, and it shows how the great work of alchemy, when you compare it, you see how the great work is really, although it was working in a lab with material substances, the great work was also the same philosophical pursuit of enlightenment. And so the quotes on all the cards in my Alchemical Tarot of Marseille are from the Hermetica, and now on the right I have another deck I did, which is called the Tarot of the Alchemical Magnum Opus, which is a simplified version. I was sort of influenced by I've been doing work with the Lenormand cards, and you probably
Oracle.
Yeah, you probably the Burning Serpent Oracle that I did with Rachel, of course, was based on the Lenormand cards, and I know that was in we had it like we worked with a German publisher to make sure it was available in Germany.
Yeah.
And so like in the Lenormand cards, there's this like simple iconic images that I thought, which just really has a certain power, like because distill. It's like, see, in alchemy, one of the things you want to do is you want to distill down to the essence. That's part of the process of getting to the essence, to the soul. So I said, well, I'm going to do this deck as if it was I'm distilling the essence of alchemy. Like I'm starting with what I had here with the alchemical tarot and in the Marseille deck, and I'm trying to get down to the essence. So here I'm just making that jongleur, that fool character, and getting down to just his face to start off with, and see how his eyes are closed instead of having a blindfold.
Yes, I
So
really like it.
He's starting off ignorant.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I especially like the materia prima with Hermes there in this
Yeah.
little drop of water or whatever it is. It's
Well,
excellent.
that's the thing. Okay, so now when we come to Hermes is the materia prima or prima, and he's the essential substance that we have to start with to create the Philosopher's Stone. He's the raw material. And see, like in the Mutus Liber, which means the silent book, Hermes, they start with Hermes, but also Hermes comes down like a drop of liquid because they would gather dew, and they felt that the dew was the materia prima or prima materia. You could say it either way. Okay, so there's all these pictures of them gathering dew, like they have big cloths out in the field that they leave out at night, and then they wring it into a tub, and so they start with dew, and that's their materia prima. So that's what I was getting at here, that image where he's like the dewdrop, like Mercury in the dewdrop, you see. And then when we go to the magician card from the Le Bateleur from the Tarot of Marseille, you see how, like, I'm showing how the magician is like Hermes, which is what I was thinking of when I made the one in the middle, right? Now notice also that Hermes symbol, you see the symbol for Hermes on both cards, it shows a more elaborate version of his symbol, where it shows it's the symbol for the moon and the sun combined with the cross of matter.
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So that's which shows that he's both the masculine and feminine. That he's got a masculine and feminine aspect, a solar aspect, and a lunar aspect. But he's bringing this down as the messenger of the gods. He's bringing us down to earth. Hermes was the god who interacted with people on the earth and brought us our dreams. So considering this whole thing started with my dream, I mean, it was a gift from Mercury, from Hermes.
And this drop of water or mercury or whatever it is, it's kind of dropping down onto earth and then bringing fruition. Can we say it like this?
Yeah. It's the raw material. Also, notice his caduceus has a red and a white snake again.
Yes.
Like, again, it goes to the alchemical opposites.
Now I can see your mouse as well. Yeah, interesting. So
okay, can you see this page now?
Yes.
Okay, now this is that image from the Mutus Liber in the right, see, from 1677, and see how Mercury's in the dewdrop, and see how he's standing on the sun and the moon.
Yeah, I can see this.
Yeah. Okay. Now look see right above is a little flask, and it shows that symbol for Mercury with the sun and moon combined in the flask. It's what basically that's again from the Mutus Liber, and showing the alchemical essence that he is put there.
Yeah.
Now notice, like, see on the Tarot of Marseille, he's again another type of jongleur. He's like a street performer, but he has this big broad hat. And that broad hat was a traveler's hat. That was an unusual hat. It's almost like how a magician today might wear a top hat, which isn't in fashion for most people anymore. So having a big broad hat was a traveler's hat, and that's actually what Hermes' hat is. So that's why, when I did mine, I gave him the same broad hat, but I put wings on it, just like this. Here, let's go back a second.
I can see it. It's
okay. Now, can you see the Alchemical Tarot Marseille card where that has wings on it now? See, but he's in front of the same table with the dice and the, and his wand has become the caduceus. So I'm taking off of what is in the Marseille deck and showing how, what's the alchemical hermetic essence of it. So here, let's go on, because we the thing is, we could get tied up and this will go on for hours.
Yeah, perhaps you can just. I think people can look deeper into it once they have seen this talk here. But perhaps you can look at some more cards. Perhaps just the High Priestess would be really interesting for me as well. So,
So can you see that? Can you see the High Priestess now?
yes.
Okay. Now you see on my alchemical tarot, you see how she has her finger to the mouth, right?
Yes.
And that's the image. See, that image comes from the Mutus Liber. Now in the Mutus Liber, the alchemist, like most people think of alchemy as like, oh, these men with beards do it, like old men with beards in a laboratory, right? Okay. Now the thing is, in the Mutus Liber, there's a man and a woman working together, and a lot of alchemical texts. So this going back to like some of the earliest European texts, they talk about like Nicholas Flamel and his wife Perenelle had to work together because the alchemist has a sister called the Sora Mystica, which just means mystical sister. So see, this is the mystical sister, and see how she's putting her hand to her mouth, representing silence. Now that's an image that comes right from ancient Egypt. So like the thing is, when people look at the tarot cards and they think, okay, they're and alchemy and these things, and they try to, they're talking about ancient Egypt. There is a connection going back to ancient Egypt, because the thing is, the great work of alchemy, when you really understand it, is really the story of Isis and Osiris and their son Horus. Like, in the story, Osiris actually lived on Earth and was the pharaoh of Egypt in the Golden Age, and he brought all the civilization to all the people of Egypt, and he taught them, how to have law and order and live like civilized people. And his vizier Thoth, whose Thoth is of course Hermes Trismegistus, because he's equated with Hermes being the messenger. Thoth like invented language, and he invented geometry and mathematics, and he invented written language and hieroglyphs so that people could write and study. And so Thoth gave people all kinds of knowledge and learning. And then Osiris had an evil brother, Set, who was really jealous of him. So Set decided he was going to destroy Osiris. So he made a special box for him that fit him just right, and it was a beautiful box. It was like beautifully crafted, and he had a party, and he said that he made this beautiful box, and he was going to give it to whoever could fit into it perfectly could have the box. So everybody, all the guests, had to like lay down in the box. Of course, they didn't fit until Osiris laid in it, and as soon as Osiris laid in it, fit him perfectly. And they nailed down the lid, and him and Set and his accomplices picked up the box, threw it in the Nile River, and it floated out, and Osiris drowned. So now Isis was really upset because she wanted to get Osiris back, get his body back, because she was a mistress of magic, and of course she was actually, even though she was married to Osiris, she was actually his sister. She was a mystical magician, and his sister. She was the original Sora Mystica. So she changed her form into a bird and flew all around the world, and then she found that the box had floated to the shore in what is now Lebanon. And it got encased in a tree, a tamarack tree, and then there was a beautiful thick tree. And then so the king of that land cut down the tree and used it for the center column in his palace. So Isis had to disguise herself again and ingratiate herself with the queen so that she was allowed to get the coffin out of the column. And then she brought the Osiris's body back to Egypt. Now Set found out again, and he cut the body up in 14 pieces and scattered them all over Egypt. So now again, Isis flew all over Egypt, and she found the parts, and then she wrapped them all together with the wrappings like a mummy. And then Thoth came along, and because of he had what was known as words of power. He had more magic even than Isis, and he used his words of power to bring Osiris back to life. And then Isis and Osiris made it, and they gave birth to Horus, who was like his wonderful baby. And see, this is an image of Horus on the right there. See Horus, and this is the infant Horus sucking his finger. Sometimes he's shown with a hawk's head later. But then Horus then set the world back, and he defeated Set, and he put everything back in order and created and recreated the Golden Age. So he's like the magical child. So in a way, like Horus is like the Philosopher's Stone. He's the magical substance that the process created. And see how there's a death and a resurrection. These are all parts of the alchemical process. But I wanted to point it out because the mystical sister is Isis. So that's why the alchemist has to work with his sister.
But who is Osiris then, if she is Isis?
Well, Osiris
in the
would be
tarot deck, I mean.
would be her, like, you know how Hermes was the prima materia, so Osiris would be the prima materia who goes through the process.
Okay, I see.
Okay. I can show you more alchemical pictures after. See, this is I was trying to go more into just the deck right now.
Please.
But anyway, so now later, people looking at this later, this image of Horus as an infant, didn't know it was Horus, and they thought it was a special Egyptian god. Like so in you know, ancient Rome, they started thinking that this was a different god, and they called him Harpocrates, which means the god of silence. So even though he was sucking on his finger, now that became the symbol of silence, and that's why we put our finger to our mouth like that to say shh. You know? And that's what the sword mystique is doing. See, she's putting. Okay, so that's what my sword mystique is doing here. And so now the thing is, the first process is called dissolution. See, up in there on the top. Okay. So what we take the prime material, it has to be broken down into the 4 elements. So the high priestess represents the water element.
Yes.
Okay, so now that's why she's in the moon boat in the water. And then this is a similar solution with the triangle, upside down triangle there is water coming out of solution. So that would be the water aspect of the dissolution.
Is this the sign of Aquarius there, or?
Well, no, that's an alchemical symbol for a solution, but it looks just like the sign of Aquarius, but it's not the sign of Aquarius.
Okay,
it just looks
worry.
the same. Okay. Now see, my alchemical tarot of Marseille. Can you see this now?
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah. Okay. So now you see, I changed the symbol. I gave her the moon along with the Aquarius-like symbol and the triangle there, and then see it says who is it that has confined the sea within its bounds? Because see, a lot of Hermetic materials are talking about the elements and about how there's a higher power controlling them. Okay, but now I'm looking at my high priestess from the Alchemical Tarot, and then the one, you know, the Magnum Opus deck. You see how I just focused on her with the hood and with that gesture. See, and instead of having the symbols on it for, you know, I'm you know, trying to give them a name that talks about their alchemical process. So to simplify it, so I'm calling her Priestess of Water.
It's lovely. I really like her. She's great.
Okay, so now the next part of the dissolution is that we want the Empress card, which represents the Earth coming out of the solution. So the Empress represents the White Queen. See, I'm going to jump. Let's jump to this one now. Right. Okay, so here we see here's our Empress card in the Tarot of Marseille, and we see the Empress. Basically, the Emperor and the Empress are a pair, just like the originally the Pope and the Papist were a pair. So like, see, there's 2 masculine and feminine couples, and it's, you know, and it seems weird because the Pope doesn't really have a mate. So in Orthodox symbolism, the Papist could symbolize the Church, and the Pope is married to the Church the way the Empress married to the Empress, or it could symbolize faith, because we see in iconography in the Renaissance that sometimes an image like that of a Papist figure represented faith. But you know, the occultists then say, well, you know, maybe she's like a high priestess. So that's where we get the you know, the occult interpretation that we see in the Wade Smith deck. Now when we come to the Empress, okay, now it's more clearly she's married to the Emperor. Now the Empress, in real life, the Emperor was the Holy Roman Emperor, who was supposedly ruled over Germany and parts of France and northern Italy. And the thing is, his wife, the main duty of the Empress was really just to make sure that the Emperor had a male heir. So her whole purpose is to get pregnant.
That's what we do.
Well, not everybody has, you know, in modern life, not all women have to get pregnant.
I know, I'm joking.
But if you were the Empress, that was your duty, you know, this is your job. Okay, so now in alchemy, there's this couple that represent the masculine and feminine polarity. There's the Red King and the White Queen. Now remember, I told you red was masculine and white's feminine, and then we see there's the Red King and the White Queen, and we see that in this image above the the Tarot of Marseille card. And then now you see in this other image here we have it's Latin for the anatomy of gold, and this represents, it's the dissolution, but it's called the pregnatio, which is basically the White Queen's pregnant, and see how she's giving birth to a magical child, right? Okay, so now in my alchemical tarot, my Empress is like that. It's sort of, it's like the imagery in the in alchemy is very sexy. So it's sexier, whereas like it's a little more. See, when we go back to the other deck, see, it's a little more toned down. Like this, my Marseille one is more like the Marseille deck, which represents a queen with the shield with the eagle, and then on the Opus deck, the Magnum Opus deck, it's like just focusing on the White Queen's face and just says the White Queen. Again, I'm trying to get down to like a clear, distilled symbol. Distilling the essence.
Yeah, fantastic.
So now her mate, of course, is the Emperor, right? Now it's interesting. You see how when we see, like, look at the Marseille one on the left and see how the Emperor has an eagle facing to the left. Now I'm going to go back a second. Okay, now see on the Marseille deck, on the Queen has the eagle facing to the right. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now see this symbol on the top. This was by Albert Dürer, and it shows a crown on the shield and it has a two-headed eagle. That's the actual coat of arms of the Holy Roman Emperor. So why is it split up between? See how like the Emperor has the eagle, the one head facing the one way, and the Queen has the head facing the other way.
Yeah.
And in alchemy, there's this ancient Greek myth that Zeus, the king of the gods, set two eagles flying in opposite directions, so that they would go around the world and meet face to face at the sacred center of the world. And of course, they considered that the island of Delos, and they put the stone there called the Omphalos, which represent the navel of the world. So, and of course, that was considered like, just like in the Quincunx, that mandala is the sacred center, the center place where the Quinta Ascension resides is the sacred center. So like we have the four elements, the four directions, the physical world, but that thing in the center is spiritual. It's the spiritual essence that animates it, and that's what he was trying to find for the whole world. So see how like in the Marseille deck, the Emperor and Empress are setting eagles flying in opposite directions, and of course, where would they come together but in the world card, right? Which is the center of the world, the same symbolism.
Yes.
Now see the images of the Red King in Alchemy. See how it often has an eagle. This one, the one on the right from the Anatomy of Gold, has he's got a phoenix and an eagle, whereas the other one, he just has the eagle. Also notice how Pamela Coleman Smith's, the Wade Smith Emperor, you see, that's just the out-and-out portrait of Charlemagne, who was the first Holy Roman Emperor. So he's got the same crown and beard and everything.
So Pamela was already thinking about alchemy because her emperor is red and the Empress is white. I never thought of this. It's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of, well, you see, I'm going to go, see, this is how we get lost in this whole thing.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I need to ask questions. I'm curious.
Okay, now look at the magician. You see how he's in this wonderful garden, and notice how there's white lilies and red roses.
Yes.
Those are the alchemical opposites, red and white.
Yes. And he's wearing something white and red as well, yeah.
And now look at his belt. See the belt's the serpent biting its tail, the Ouroboros.
Yes.
The symbol of time, right? Okay, so see the alchemical symbolism. That's what I started realizing from Pamela's deck, that she had worked alchemical symbolism into it in the first place.
Yes.
Beyond, they're sort of suggested already in the Marseille deck, but the Marseille deck is really hermetic. So that's why sometimes it borrows alchemical symbols, sometimes it doesn't. But the thing is, the basic philosophy in the Marseille deck is the same. But she's pointing out more alchemical aspects.
Wow.
And of course the gesture saying "as above, so below."
Yes. Yeah.
Which comes from the Emerald Tablet, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna see. Now we're backing up
the
again.
Emperor.
Now, see, well, yeah, but I want to show you this. Now, see on my Marseille deck. Now this is right from the Hermetica. It says, "It must be that all the world which lies below has been set in order and filled with contents by the things which are placed above. See? So that alchemical saying, as above, so below, really comes from the Hermetica, which is older.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's go back. Let's see. Okay, so we got, we're at the Emperor, right? Okay, here. Now, so we want to look at these cards. Okay, so there. Now, see my Emperor on my side deck. See, I gave him the eagle again, facing to the left this time, and see, and similarly on the Alchemical Tarot, he has the one eagle, and he represents the Red King, and that's obviously in the Opus deck. It just says the Red King, and making sure he's red. He has rubies on his crown. He has a red beard and hair.
He looks very red.
Yeah, he's like Eric the Red. Okay. 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 So that brings us to the Hierophant. So also the Emperor represents the air element. That's why I have him in the air, right? So see, that's the symbol for air. Okay. Now the Hierophant, of course, was the Pope originally, right? The Pape. So the Pape is I'm relating him to fire as part of the last part of the dissolution, but he's also marrying the opposites. You see how he's marrying the red and white, the sun and moon, the gold and silver statues, which are also represent the king and the queen. And then he's holding this book showing combining the opposites. Of course, I call him the priest of fire in my Opus deck, and he has that triple crown. See, the Pope has a triple crown, but you see in lots of alchemical texts, we'll see that alchemists, like, see this one here? Did it come up for you?
Yeah. He has the same kind of crown.
It's Hermes' crown, which represents Hermes. See, he's balancing the sun and moon, but he has the triple crown showing he rules over animal, vegetable, mineral, but he's also thrice great. Okay, now in this image, this is from Avicenna's on chemistry, basically from 1702, and see, Avicenna was like the first alchemist after when the Islamic world took over the Middle East. Then most of the alchemists were from the Islamic world, were Arabic, and so the great alchemists from that period were from Egypt and Middle East, and like what's now the Levant, that area, but they spread alchemy to the Islamic world conquered all the way across North Africa into Spain. So in Spain there was this melting pot going on, and then so in the 1300s, so in the 1200s and 1300s, we start to see that a lot of these texts are being translated from Arabic into Latin, so that Western scholars could read them, and that's how alchemy was introduced to Western Europe, to like Italy and France and Germany and England, that whole area. So they all came out of Spain, but that's also how cards were introduced. So that's how we got cards in the first place. Like, cards and alchemy were brought together by the Arabs, right? Now in Avicenna's text, he says that he was trying to look for the secrets of the Philosopher's Stone, and he found this ancient Egyptian tomb. So we might think it might have been a pyramid, right? And he found a crack, and he was able to enter into the tomb, and he found inside the statue holding this book with the secret of alchemy. And I assume that the Emerald Tablet, which is written later, I think there's some connection here that the tablet that the statue is holding is supposed to be related somehow. The Emerald Tablet was sort of based on it. And then you see behind, like if you look behind the figure, you see there's all men, and then there's these bird-like creatures with bows and arrows. So those were all actually a mural that was, according to the way Avicenna described, there was actually things painted on the tomb wall, but there was this statue. And so on the statue we see there's a book, and it has moons on the left and suns on the right. And on the moon side, there's this double Ouroboros. See how there's a bird with wings and a bird without wings, and they're biting each other's tail. Okay, so that represents this transformation of the fixed to the volatile, so that's the secret of alchemy.
Which is the number 5, obviously.
Yeah, okay. Now, so that brings us to the Lovers. Okay, so now that we've split everybody up, we have to bring them back together, right? So you see, now it's interesting, in the Marseille deck, the Lover has to make a choice between two women. Like, see, there's this is the early one, from when Cupid still had his blindfold. Later ones they dropped the blindfold. But you see, Cupid's shooting his arrow at the lover, and he has to choose between the woman on the right with flowers in her hair or the woman on the left with the laurel wreath. Now, the woman with the flowers represents sensuality, and the woman with the laurel wreath represents virtue. Now, for the story to continue, he has to pick virtue, and then he becomes the virtuous charioteer, who's ready to take on the challenges of life. Now, but in the earlier Italian decks, it didn't present this choice. What it did, it presented a man and a woman with Cupid above them, and like it was like a betrothal portrait, like they were being married. And see, and that's what Pamela's basing hers on. And of course, she's relating it to Adam and Eve, and and instead of Cupid, it says this angel, possibly Raziel, who's sanctioning Adam and Eve and teaching them the great secrets.
And you did to your deck there, Alchemy. There are 2 lover words. Robert? Hello, everybody out there. This is just to tell you that I'm very sorry the talk with Robert got interrupted. I don't know what happened. Perhaps we were too deep into the secrets of alchemy and tarot. I'm now back online to tell you that the beautiful cards you could see by Robert are still all available. You just need to go to Robert's webpage, which you can see here in the background. And as you can see on the main page, I don't know whether I can scroll down here. No, I can't. Perhaps, well, never mind. On this, on his page, he has this Alchemical Tarot of Marseille directly on the front page, but he has also many other. I need to do it like this. Now I understand. I can scroll here. So he has the images of his Alchemical Tarot in comparison to the Tarot de Marseille here, but he has also many other projects which he did, many tarot decks to see. Obviously, you can buy all the decks from his homepage. And Robert kindly said that he would come back to discuss more tarot and alchemy at some later point. I hope you really liked the talk. I was really interested in many aspects he was telling me, because for example, the thing with white and red was not so obvious to me in the tarot. I'm wearing red today. So yes, please, if you want to watch the video, you can of course do this. We will do a second video to continue this. Please leave your comments and go to Robert's webpage and buy his beautiful decks. I think they're really worthwhile it. Okay. Yes, I think that's about it for tonight. It's Friday evening here in Hamburg, and I might just stop working for today then. Have a great weekend, and some of you might go to the conference of the WDA, the World Divination or Association, tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. It's called Big Bang. Perhaps some of you are interested in doing this. I'll be there as well. Bye.